We community, how are we? Also, in case you're coming out late, shout out to Rafi for designing this sticker. 50,000 subscribers. I'll remember this for the rest of my life. That's where it should go, just there next to Pikachu. So there's a video. It's about 15 minutes. I'm gonna look through it because I'm intrigued. I wanted to see it with you guys, and plus we've got some time today, so we're gonna hear what this game, and it's talking more about Star Wars Outlaws wants to be your dream. Open galaxy. We all know we like our friends at IGN.
Making games is really tough. Making open world games is really, really tough. And making Star Wars open world games is the next level of difficulty.
Julian Garrity, creative director at Massive Entertainment, is up for a challenge. For the first time ever, we're getting a fully open world Star Wars video game. It's been a long time coming, but after back-to-back successes with both The Division and The Division 2, Garrity was in the mood to take a risk.
This may be just my approach, but even if it's scary, you've got to do it. You've got to lean into it. What's the downside to pitching a Star Wars?
Because obviously we've seen like people play a bit of the game, more like missions. We don't really know, I don't really know how the open world will work. I assume that the planets will open as you go along and then you can go back and forth to those planets, but we're gonna have to see.
At Lucasfilm Games, in George Lucas's old office, I mean, what's the downside to that? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you still have that experience.
Fast forward several years after that meeting, and Massive Entertainment is less than 2 months away from releasing Star Wars Outlaws, a fully realised version of the original pitch described in that office. An open world of dual ambitions, maintain the cinematic legacy of the films, and create immersive scoundrel gameplay that grants you the freedom of the galaxy.
I think it's taken this long to get an open world Star Wars game because of how, excuse the pun, massive it is to build a game like this.
All right. He should be a comedian, this guy.
There are only so many studios in the world who build games of this scale. The door is then open for Massive to come to us and say, this is what we're interested in doing. This is the type of game design and gameplay we want. This is what we're thinking about in terms of an archetype. Where does that fit?
I hope the audio's all good.
Outlaw player fantasy, and it's open world. Those were the two main pillars that we pitched. Why open world? Because the outlaw fantasy really needs that to live and breathe.
It's a combination of, I think, our DNA as a studio, our background, when we think, okay, what do we have a lot of experience doing? What do we think we're good at? And this fantasy, the scoundrel in Star Wars, begs for freedom.
Massive was fully confident in its abilities to create...
You just know it's going to be better than Starfield, obviously.
Engaging open worlds. The Division offered a bullet-filled action playground, while last year's Avatar Frontiers of Pandora displayed...
Okay, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, you know, guys, how I feel about this. That's the only thing I'm concerned about this Star Wars game. Like, I think the first 3 hours of playing Star Wars... Star Wars? Avatar, the first... even 3 to 5 hours of playing Frontiers of bloating. Yes, Lyric. That's the thing. It was a beautiful game, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I have to transport this group of wasps to a tree.
An ability to work well within a Disney license by building a near unmatched visual paradise. But Star Wars was the new challenge that this team yearned for. Of course, deciding what kind of experience would live inside a Star Wars open world was the first thing that had to be decided.
We took a step back, of course, and thought, okay, Star Wars open world, what an opportunity. What does that naturally want to be? And it wants to be the full scale from the very small to the very big, meaning sitting inside a cantina, playing sabak, being able to walk through the streets, jump on your speeder, drive across the planet's surface, park literally your bike in your own ship, take off into space seamlessly.
That vision of full scale helped secure a green light from Star Wars custodians, but getting Lucasfilm's blessing was just the key in the ignition. Translating the cinematic spectacle of the original Star Wars movie trilogy into an open world, set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, two of the most iconic films of all time, was the actual challenge. One that Massive set out to address in every aspect of Outlaws.
I love it when, like, you know, where what's her name? Vess, she's like walking very slowly, and I love the way Ubisoft games used to promote their games, because in the game I like visualize, I'm going to be walking slowly, looking at the surroundings, and then when I play Assassin's Creed I just sprint everywhere. I'm like, I try and walk, and I'm like, no, it's too long. Sprint.
For action-adventure gameplay, it supplies.
Let's see if this video convinces us.
The sort of cinematic ambition that we had was in presentation. So that doesn't mean cinematics necessarily. What I care most about is the interactive part, right? What we did was take a lot of inspiration from the original trilogy, but with today's technology. So very similar to what Rogue One did. What its aim was to do was to replicate a lot.
The only thing I think, so I can't remember what YouTuber pointed it out. The only thing that kind of looks a bit iffy, like even with the stormtroopers, like where you can silently take them out, it was, some of them said it's a bit funny that she's got her bare hands and then she just like smacks them with their armor and knocks them out, and it's like, man, that would pretty much break their arm or her arm, but still.
Sort of filmic effects of those lenses of the 1970s. So you'll see barrel distortion on the sides, vignetting, film grain, chromatic aberration, and of course, all wrapped up in an ultra widescreen presentation.
It's a key point for open world games at large, but I think very much for Star Wars as well. And not always scale in that it needs to be grand, but it needs to be conscious. The scale of Tatooine needs and should and does in our game feel very different. It breeds open sand dunes, long sight lines. You see,
I'm going to be trying my
PSVR, any little anomaly on the horizon. And it might be an opportunity for you
every time I want to see the stuff,
the dense streets of Kijimi.
Scale is something written into the very DNA of Star Wars, whether seen on the big or small screen. Greg Fraser, Rogue One's director of photography, recently told IGN that
if you watch any Star Wars film, that's what it's all about. It's, you know, knowing how big a human is going into this massive Millennium Falcon. You know how big the Millennium Falcon is going to this massive Death Star. Like, you know, it's scale upon scale upon scale.
It's a philosophy Garrity and the team at Massive took into Outlaws when crafting the introduction to its open world.
One of our intentions was, for the beginning of the game, to make it feel very small and then bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So beginning of the game, you start off in one room and it's claustrophobic and it's meant to make you feel a little bit trapped. You open up and it's city streets, but it's contained. And then some narrative stuff and you steal a ship and you explode into the galaxy and all of a sudden you crash land on this planet, which is...
Okay, now this sounds pretty cool. Because that's the thing, you know what? The biggest thing is when it's so overwhelming and you're just, all of a sudden, there you go, you're in that open world go. Obviously, unlike Elden Ring and games like that. But with Ubisoft games, I felt like that with Avatar. As soon as you do like the tutorial in the first bit and you're like, here you go. And you're like, wow, this is massive. So the fact that they're going to kind of slowly open up the game and the map, that sounds a bit more promising.
Wide open world. That sort of sense of everything growing for you, and not just the scale of the galaxy, but the scale of the possibilities for you as a character, as a
Will it feel bloated?
K-Vess, the underworld's favorite new scoundrel.
Outlaws campaign tells the tale of K-Vess, a young scoundrel looking to build a team from across the stars in order to pull off one big space heist and remove the death mark placed on her by the Zerek Besh crime syndicate. It's the basis of a story that evokes many other adventures from across both games and film.
I love Mass Effect 2. It was one of my favorite games. I think there were so many influences, everything from Ocean's 11, Ocean's 8, to Star Wars itself, you know, the previous films, like that heist feeling was always kind of in the fabric, to just tonally the films of Kurosawa, those original influences to George Lucas.
Knowing what sort of story you want to tell is one thing. Telling an engaging story in an open world setting is another task altogether, and one that Kavari is well aware of, having written for Far Cry 4, 5 and 6, as well as The Division.
It's one of the things you always have to keep in mind is how are we going to weave a narrative and an open world together so that we're telling the story but also giving you the freedom to sort of go wherever you like. We had a really clear approach on Outlaws, which was there was Kay's journey. We called them sort of lighthouses. They were key.
You know what I mean with most characters. I hope she's a likable, she has character development. Maybe she starts off on a hopeless journey and then you just can relate to her, you know? August 30th.
Points that we knew we want her to hit these and then that makes her story kind of part of the
Better not be
wider
like Forspoken.
Star Wars narrative. But between those moments, we knew early on that if you got distracted by curiosity, the world had to react to that. It had to expect that the player is going to go off the beaten path.
The things that lie off the beaten path are built in accordance to something Massive refers to as the 3-second rule, where within a few blinks of an eye, you can instantly understand the nature of a location or character and the story behind them.
Before you even put life in them, they need
strong
to visually
independent.
tell a
She better
story
not be that typical strong independent.
What kind of place it is, what's happened in the past, what type of life and events have taken place in them. So they get that lived-in feeling, and that lived-in, relatable, substantial feel, I think is a hallmark of any good open world, but also very Star Wars.
Star Wars aesthetic has always been rooted in the idea of the used future, where everything from the largest spaceships to the tiniest droids have that instantly recognizable layer of grime. Those small details build up into authentic, cool and bespoke spaces, something Massive has always managed to build into its open worlds. The Division and its sequel are packed full of memorable levels ranging from New York landmarks to Washington DC museums, and that philosophy is being transferred to Outlaws' many planets. Its main missions promise to take us to iconic locations such as Imperial bases and Jabba's palace.
We can lean into the virtual tourism aspect of, hey,
I just hope it's
what
a
is
good
the distance
story,
between the moisture farms and Mos Eisley and the
world.
cantina? There is a linear roller coaster story golden path, if you will. And around that, of course, there's the open world.
That's the dream I know I had as a kid. That is what I've always wanted from a Star Wars game. A Republic cruiser that's crashed, but I want to be able to jump into my speeder and blast off, hop into the Trailblazer, take off into space, maybe land in a space station and meet some characters that factor into my quest or journey along the way. And so that sort of connective tissue of planet or moon to space was crucial, because that's kind of the fantasy that I think players are hoping for.
That fantasy and freedom is evidently at the core of Outlaws. And while
it's weird, I think Hogwarts did it really well. I do think why is my thing playing up? That was a very not smooth transition. I feel like Hogwarts, I still haven't completed the side activities. And even though I say it's amazing, I haven't got back to the game. Which, is it me that tells me that, oh, I just don't have time for it? Or is it a really good game? But when I do dive back into it, I am mesmerized by this world. Could they do things a lot better? For sure. I feel like those Merlin trials, there were so many. Was it too bloated in those aspects? Maybe. I thought the story was good. At the time, I really liked it. I think because I was a Harry Potter fan, so I feel like that's the same thing with something like Avatar, where I'm not a big Avatar fan. So I guess there's a bit more obviously bias, where I was like, man, just having a Harry Potter game.
All 5 planets and moons won't be instantly available to hyperdrive between. Garrity claims it won't be long into Kay's journey until the galaxy opens up.
There's a very structured intro that leads you to crash land on Tashara, which is a moon that we created with Lucasfilm Games.
Yes, lock, stock.
And once you finish the sort of linear narrative on Tashara, the other planets open up. And there it becomes completely non-linear, and you can choose to tackle those in any order you want.
Okay. It's promising so far what they're saying, but again, saying it and
exploration of these worlds is highly encouraged, with maps that are not, at least initially, flooded with icons and points of interest, because you're seeing these places from a fresh perspective.
Kay, as a character, hasn't seen the galaxy. So the first time Kay comes to Tashara is the first time you come to Tashara. And it's not an unknown, uncharted place. So you'll have a map of where you can see there's mountains over there and stuff, but discovery is what gives you more information.
You're going to have to take some risks. You're going to have to go to a cantina, and you can eavesdrop, pick up on some conversations that will lead you to another location that reveals a location within the open world that you have to get on your speeder to go and find. There will be a fog of war that you'll be able to clear up, and that's really where your curiosity will open things up even more.
Each of Outlaws' worlds vary in size. Tashara, Massive's newly created moon, is around the same size as the jungle planet of Akiva, but a little smaller than the vast desert of Tatooine.
It was less about how big, but more about how long in terms of traversal with the speeder it would be. 4 or 5 minutes non-stop, which Doesn't sound like a lot, but once you're committed, it's a fairly large amount. You're always going to be distracted. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which was one of the games that we were looking at while creating this, you have different zones, so it's 2 or 3 of those together.
And that doesn't even take into account the vast areas of space that surround each planet and serve as entirely different areas of orbital exploration and opportunity. We'll cover that, as well as the starship side of the game, in greater depth later on in this month's IGN First.
I said, run.
Okay. Alright, let's keep watching. But yeah, that's the thing. It's the open world that concerns me. Is how we're going to want to explore and there's things to do, but how engaged are we going to be? Is it like, I know I'm saying Elden Ring because I just feel like with that game, obviously, as you know, it's just exploring it is such, what's the word? It's so exciting because you don't know what you're going to find. But obviously with these curses and things to do, if it's just like go here and find it, I hope they does give you the freedom to do what you want. But yeah, like you said with Hogwarts, I liked because it was just more the exploration. And even Horizon Forbidden West, maybe I shouldn't have played that alongside Elden Ring, but still.
In terms of mission design, we've seen action ranging from stealth infiltrations, frantic dogfights, high-speed chases, and intense blaster battles, with some quests even evolving to include all these elements at different stages. Star Wars Outlaws is thus perhaps better thought of as a single-player narrative action-adventure in the wrappings of an open world, something more akin to Marvel's Spider-Man than dense RPGs like The Witcher or Ubisoft's recent Assassin's Creed games. Its mixture of popcorn action and blockbuster narrative ambition is a departure from Massive's gear-based experience on The Division. It's a new chapter in the continued evolution of a studio that started life as a real-time strategy developer.
I think if you look at the evolution of open world between Division 1 and Division 2, there's a life, a dynamism, a systemic quality to Division 2 that we didn't have in Division 1. I'm not talking about the presentation, the soft values at all. I'm talking about pure gameplay experience, single player or cooperative. That was very, very important to us to have as a living, breathing element that engages players while they're playing Outlaws.
It's an evolution of what Massive has been doing in their games for years now, keeping worlds feeling bustling and alive even when set against post-apocalyptic backdrops or in the midst of galactic wars.
We, in both Division games, but especially in the second one, developed living world systems. So same thing here. We have systems that make sure that the world is always alive with movement, traffic, speeders zipping around, the Empire patrolling, the syndicates have footholds out there, sometimes more substantial events happen. It's really up to you if you want to engage or not.
Perhaps Outlaw's most interesting method of breathing life into its open world is its approach to character progression. There's no leveling up or incremental stat boosts to drop experience points into. Instead, Kay's ability and equipment are linked to experts, people you'll meet across the galaxy who'll grant you upgrades in exchange for work.
I heard you're the best shot on the planet.
Okay, this might sound a bit better. Instead of just, oh, we're level 10, oh, we need to be level 20 for this. This sounds a bit more promising.
You want to be second best.
They are full-on characters. You don't know exactly who they are, what exactly they have to offer you, and how to reach them from the very beginning. So there's this journey of discovery here as well. Intel, clues. Okay, I think there's a guy, a gal, or something that can do good things to my speeder here. Meaning these are really
it's that bit there.
Strong incentives for you to move around and journey through the world and expose yourself to other fun things on the way. And once you reach them, there's a character there to interact with and an adventure to go on, because they want instantly just, oh, here you go.
Deadeye, that's so true.
And then they essentially open up a little regional progression for you where the nature of unlocking those things is also very tangible.
For example, after finding a Jawa by sourcing their location from overheard intel at a cantina, you can complete a mission for them in order to gain a new skill. In this case, it's to venture into a dead Sarlacc to find a pristine tooth from its second mouth, which you can then exchange for a laser turret for Kay's starship, the Trailblazer. It's a smart way of blending gameplay progression with narrative befitting of the Star Wars criminal underbelly.
You can go on a journey with a character such as an expert who is going to teach Kay a new skill, give her a new upgrade, you know, to her blaster. That skill, that upgrade definitely ties into Kay pulling off the heist, but it's also very much its own journey, which is in the Star Wars tradition as well.
Another system aiming to marry gameplay with narrative is how Outlaws tracks Kay's reputation with each of the criminal syndicates. Her bond with each of the Hutts, Pikes, Crimson Dawn and the Shiga clan will strengthen or weaken depending on your choices in dialogue and mission objectives.
I'm gonna finish it. Shame.
You want me to die.
Your reputation moving in the positive direction unlocks a lot of things for you. Everything from
much more
actual access to territory that they control, where you might have been able to sneak in otherwise, to landing pads in the open world, discount with traders affiliated with the syndicate, unique, really exotic rewards, etc., etc. But if you really get on their bad side, that's another thing that you will feel dynamically in the game, because they actually send hit squads out for you in the open world.
The reputation system doesn't just sit inside of missions though. Smaller opportunities regularly present themselves to boost your relationships among the syndicates. These might be smaller skirmishes where choosing to get involved can benefit you and the organisation you side with, and a strong bond may even help you out with the bigger threat looming over the galaxy.
So what? I'm wondering, will they help you in certain situations?
This is getting bad. Hold tight.
If you've, for whatever reason, ended up wanted and you're being chased by Empire and you cross paths with a syndicate that you have a really good reputation with at the moment, they might join in and help you out.
Outlaws directly follows the events of The Empire Strikes Back and sees the Imperial forces at the peak of their powers. In gameplay terms, the Stormtroopers are basically like GTA's police and adopt a similar wanted system. Find yourself in a restricted area or accidentally fire a stray laser bullet at a Stormtrooper and you'll quickly find yourself in hot water. It's by no means a revolutionary system when it comes to open world design, but one that is made all the more exciting thanks to a lick of Imperial black and white paint.
It has a good range of escalation and de-escalation. It's really up to you if you want to try and hide, or maybe bribe an Imperial officer that's a bit corrupt in a city somewhere, or try to jump to a different space.
Yeah, what you said, P, about the combat, that's the only thing. There's another thing I'm kind of concerned about is how fun is the combat going to be? Is it, I don't want to compare everything to Elden Ring, but is it just shooting and then boom? I mean, like, something like Uncharted 4 was just so much fun. The covering, boom, boom, boom. Like, that was just such an amazing game. But then you had the amazing character, an insane story. So it has to have, the story and the characters have to be on point. It has to be. If it's not, it's just going to be like, I feel like games don't really make in-depth characters anymore.
This region, but you will feel it, and let's just say there are death troopers for a reason.
Hang on.
New cinematics there. What's this? Balancing quality with quantity. We're nearly there, guys.
Beyond the main missions, expert side missions, and the reputation system at the core of it all, many other snackable activities exist in Outlaws open world. These range from quick contracts such as smuggling and stealing, gambling in Sabak, to playing asteroid-filled arcade shooter games, and betting on Canto Bite's Favia racing. All of these activities bolster your ever-growing supply of credits, which can be used to purchase new customization and gear options for Kay, her pet-like alien companion Nyx, and the Trailblazer. And yet, there's more. Emergent events frequently take place throughout the open world, whether on land or in space.
Every 2-3 minutes there'll be something that's happening, whether it's an ambush or the Empire arresting some civilians or combat with some criminal syndicates, and it's up to you whether you want to engage or not.
So with so much to do in Star Wars Outlaws, how does Massive go about avoiding open world bloat? With a near endless galaxy of opportunity, there's the worry that things may spiral, feature creep sets in, and everything just gets too big. The studio had a clear plan from the start though, leading with variety over size, quality over quantity, if you will.
We don't want things to be just big for big sake. We need it to be contained, always fun, always proposing different activities.
It's about calibrating size to substance. When you see something that breaks pattern, that stands out for whatever reason, and you go there and look, there's something there to do, and that repeats frequently enough, and that the quests, the bespoke kind of content of the game makes use of it, so that it doesn't feel like a separate experience, but it's all one.
Of course, no matter how much there will be to do in Outlaws, one thing that can be expected is a healthy helping of nods to the larger Star Wars galaxy. Lando is set to make an appearance, and we've already seen a glimpse of Han Solo in Carbonite, but it sounds like they might just be the tip of the iceberg.
There's Easter eggs, there's characters that you'll meet along the way across the main quests and across, whether it's the experts or, you know, the wider stories you're going to stumble across. August 30th is a really great date.
30th.
I recommend bookmarking it in your calendar.
I like the way you said
August
that.
30 is right around the corner.
Us.
A short wait for many players for whom an open world game set in a galaxy far, far away has been a long-held dream. I could feel a similar passion for Star Wars coming out of each person I spoke to at Massive, and for them, I can't help but get the sense that that dream is a shared one. Making open world games is tough, and bringing open world to Star Wars may well bring an extra level of difficulty, but for Garrity and the team, it's been a challenge worth taking on.
I'm not as young as I used to be, and I'm getting to that point where I think I can count the number of games I can do till I'm put out to pasture on one hand, and it becomes more and more important to me to choose what I do, because it's really important for me to do quality work with people that I love working with.
That is, and they're saying all the right
Star
stuff.
Wars is definitely bucket lists.
So, where do we go next?
Anywhere we want.
We'll have more exclusive looks at Star Wars Outlaws for you throughout July, and for everything else, stick with IGN.
Wow. Let's go! These nuts. Got him! Sold it. Got him! I'm just gonna pre-order it right now. I'm joking, I'm not pre-ordering. Listen, he's saying it. The quality over quantity